land of Ur was populated by nomads that worshipped different gods. One day, God came to Abram.
Abram, a land will be given to you, your children and their families. If you follow me, your descendants will be as numerous as the grains of sand on a beach and as stars in the sky.
What will this land be called?
It will be called Canaan, the land of milk and honey.
During their journey, they came across 3 travelers who were really angels of God. They had a talk with Abraham. He greeted them hospitably.
Abraham, your wife Sarah will bear a child, and you will name him Isaac. But how can this be? My wife is too old to bear a child.
But soon enough, Sarah bore a child named Isaac. Abraham and Sarah loved their son very much. Isaac grew older. And one day, God called Abraham and said,
Abraham, I know you love your son Isaac very much, but you must show your faithfulness to me and by sacrificing him.
Abraham built an altar for the sacrifice. Abraham tied his son to the altar with one knife in his hand.
Abraham! Abraham! I am here, Lord! God has seen that you have not withheld your only son.
Isaac married a woman named Rebekah, who gave birth to 2 twin boys, named Esau and Jacob. Esau became his father's favorite because he was a skillful hunter, and Jacob became his mother's favorite because he preferred to stay home and help his mother. One day, Jacob came home. One day Esau came home while Jacob was cooking soup.
I beg of you, Jacob, please give me some soup.
Why should I give you my soup, brother?
I've been working on the fields all day and I've had nothing to eat.
I will only give you my soup if you sell me your birthright.
It is yours, Jacob.
Back then, the birthright was very important because the son with the birthright would inherit his father's land. But through the years, Isaac lost his eyesight, and so one day he called Esau.
My son, I will give you my final blessings before I die. But first go out and hunt a deer so you can prepare a meal the way I like it. Shall be done.
Rebekah overhears the entire conversation and went to tell Jacob.
Jacob, wrap this skin around your arm. Why, Mother? Why should I do this? So that your father will think that you are Esau and give you his final blessing. Give them this specially prepared food. It is the way he likes it. Okay.
So Jacob went to his father, and he gave him the final blessing. But meanwhile, Esau was coming home.
Father, I have brought you my meal to receive my final blessing. My son, I have already given the blessing. To whom? It must have been to your brother. How can he be so dishonest and deceive me that way? I am so deeply hurt.
Jacob was furious. Esau was furious. He said this day, if it takes forever, he would kill his brother Jacob. So Rebekah sent Jacob to her brother's house until Esau's anger cooled.
Where he saw Laban and Rachel, Laban's daughter. Until Laban came to him one day.
Jacob, you have worked for me for a month.
I ask you, what should your wages be?
I ask only one thing. The hand of your daughter Rachel in marriage. I will work 7 years for it.
At the end of the 7 years, Laban prepared a wedding. But what Jacob didn't know was that Laban had dressed up Leah, his older daughter, with a veil so Jacob could not see her. When Jacob lifted the veil and saw that it was not Rachel, he went to talk to Laban.
Laban, why have you tricked me this way? In our land, it is a custom for the oldest daughter to be married first.
Well then, I'll work another 7 years to be married to Rachel.
She says this in Egypt. The Pharaoh's daughter went to the river with her assistant to bathe.
What is that in your hand? What have you? It's a baby. A child? Yes, it must be a Hebrew child whose mother does not want him to grow up as a slave. I shall keep him as my own. I shall call him Moses.
As Moses was growing up, he saw one day an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave. He got so angry that he killed the Egyptian. He knew the Pharaoh was going to be very angry, so he fled to the land of Midian.
Moses stayed there as a shepherd for many years. One day, Moses saw something at the top of Horeb, the mountain of God. There he saw the image of God as a burning bush. God spoke to Moses.
Moses, I see the suffering and sadness of the Israelite slaves in Egypt. I want you to lead the people out of bondage. I promise I will help you and lead the Israelites into a land flowing with milk and honey.
But I don't understand. How can I lead my people to freedom?
I assure you that I will be with you. I will enable you to perform wonders that will make the Pharaoh tremble.
Soon Moses left with his brother Aaron to Egypt. When they got there, they had a talk with the Pharaoh.
Pharaoh, I have been sent by God to tell you to let the Israelites go. Never! The Hebrews are my slaves. Aaron, your staff. This is the power of the Lord.
Yeah?
For the second time, Moses went to the Pharaoh.
Pharaoh, I come to you for the second time. Let the Hebrews go. Never! Aaron.
All right, cool, go.
Oh, behold, the river has turned to blood. The first of the plague. This is a silly magician's trick. Sit, my water. Behold, the power of the Lord.
9 more plagues came after this, including darkness, hail, frogs, and locusts.
Pharaoh, do you think this is the work of the Hebrew God? Nonsense!
After the last plague, God sent the angel of death to kill every firstborn child in Egypt, including the Pharaoh's only son. The Hebrews' children were saved because of the mark on their door. The angel of death passed over the Hebrew houses.
You have witnessed the power of the Lord. Are you now ready to release the Hebrews? Very well. You have killed my only son. Take the Hebrews and leave.
Moses and his people traveled to the wilderness of Sinai and camped below a mountain. God told Moses that in 3 days he would come down upon Mount Sinai for all the people of Israel to see. On the morning of the 3rd day there was thunder, lightning, and a great heavy cloud came over Mount Sinai. Then Moses went to the top of the mountain where he received the 10 Commandments, 2 tablets on which were written the laws of God that had set for the people of Israel.
I am the Lord your God. You shall not have other gods but me. You shall not worship any graven image. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet anything that is your neighbor's.
After God spoke with Moses, he left again, leading his people out of Egypt in search of the promised land. They walked for days through the desert of Shur, but found no water. Then they came to a place called Marah, but the water was so bitter that they could not drink it. They arrived at the desert of Shin, and then Massa, Meribah, Rephidim, and so on and so on. For 40 years they traveled, making them strong and rough and welding together into a nation, before reaching the land of milk and honey. Moses never made it and died before reaching the land of God at the age of 120. God showed Moses the promised land from the top of the mountain and told him, even though he would never enter this land, the children of Israel would.
Before Moses died, he chose a man named Joshua to succeed him as the leader of the Israelites. At God's command, he told his people to prepare, for in 3 days they would cross the Jordan River into the promised land. He sent 2 men to secretly look at the land and the city of Jericho. When they came back, he had his people camp outside the city of Jericho, which was protected on all sides by a great wall. At God's command, he had his people marched around the wall, carrying the ark, which contained the 10 Commandments. They were to be absolutely silent, only blowing trumpets. On the 7th day, Joshua had the Israelites march around the city 7 times. On the 7th time, he said,
Shout! For the Lord has given you this land.
They all shouted together, and the great wall crumbled and fell. And so the people of Israel went in and took the city. Joshua spent the rest of his life dividing the promised land among the Israelites. Finally, all of the land belonged to the children of Israel, but Joshua reminded them.
For as long as you obey God's 10 commandments, this city shall be yours. As the Israelites took over Canaan, they knew that it was God that was giving them their victory. As they conquered more land, they thought that a leader to govern each tribe was the best idea. The Israelites called these leaders judges. One of the best-known judges was Samson. Samson was a Nazirite, which meant that he was not allowed to drink wine or cut his hair. God had given Samson great strength, but God told Samson that if he ever broke his Nazirite vow, his strength would be taken away. The Philistines did not know what Samson's weakness was, but they would soon find out.
Delilah, you know Samson very well. What is his weakness?
I do not know. For 100 shekels, I can find out.
So Delilah went to Samson.
Tell me, Samson, what is your weakness?
If you bind me with bowstring, I'll be as weak as any man.
Samson, of course, lied to Delilah to conceal his secret. So when Samson was asleep, the Philistines brought Delilah the fresh bowstring, and she bound Samson. And then, to wake up Samson, she said,
Samson, the Philistines are coming.
Samson woke up and tore the bond string. Delilah was infuriated, but she tried again and again to discover the secret. But each time, Samson lied to Delilah. Eventually, Delilah found out Samson's secret. That night, Delilah shaved the head of Samson. And he was taken away by the Philistines. Since he had no strength, the Philistines gouged out his eyes and mistreated him. One day, many years later, Samson was taken to the center square to be mocked and laughed at. He asked the Lord to forgive him and requested one last burst of strength. The Lord granted his last wish, and Samson regained his strength and rocked the columns of the temple. The buildings collapsed on Samson and killed every Philistine within.
The people of Israel did not follow God's commandments, and they worshipped idols. So God made them suffer under the rule of cruel Midianites, who forced the Israelites to live in caves in the mountains. When they tried to farm the land, the Midianites attacked them, destroyed their camps, killed their sheep, and destroyed their crops. This went on for 7 years until God decided that they had suffered enough. He chose a man named Gideon to lead them to victory.
Gideon, you will deliver Israel and free them from the Midianites. I will be one with you, and you shall smite all of the Midianites as if they were one man.
What proof do I have that this is true, that you are indeed God?
Pour broth over the bread and lamb.
Instantly, they burst into flames, and Gideon knew it was God speaking to him.
Gideon, reassured by the power of God, gathered his men to fight the Midianites. He and his men captured the 2 Midianite princes and had them put to death. He entered the city by a road that was little used and captured the army and the 2 Midianite kings. The people of Israel were so happy and grateful to be free and live in peace worshiping God that they wanted to make Gideon their king.
I shall not rule over you. My son will not rule over you. God shall rule over you.
And there was peace in Israel for 40 years. Samuel, the son of Hannah and Elkanah, grew in God's favor because of his devotion and faith and served as God's instrument to serve the Israelites as their prophet for as long as he lived. As he became old, he went to God and asked for help in choosing a new leader, for he knew his own sons were not good men.
The next morning, a young man named Saul came to the city looking for donkeys. A servant suggested he ask the wise prophet Samuel where to look for the animals. When Samuel met Saul, God told him,
Here is the man of whom I spoke to you. It is he who shall rule over my people.
Samuel invited Saul to dinner and gave Saul a place at the head of the table. After dinner, Samuel revealed God's word to Saul. Saul could not believe he had been chosen for such an important job because he came from a very poor and humble family.
God does not choose men for their riches. He looks into their hearts.
Then Samuel took a barrel of oil and poured it on Saul's head as a symbol of God's blessing. He proclaimed him king over Israel. Samuel gathered the people of Israel to show them their new king. Saul was a full head taller than everyone else. There was no one like him in the land. The people shouted,
Long live the king! Long live the king!
time, Israel was at war with the Amalekites. God commanded Saul, lead the Israelites in battle against the Amalekites, and do not spare no one living thing, be it man, woman, infant, ox, sheep, or donkey. So Saul gathered a large army and defeated the Amalekites, destroying the people, but sparing the king, and also the best sheep, the best oxen, and the best lamb. God spoke to Samuel.
I repent making Saul king, for he has turned back from following me.
Samuel became very angry and went to see Saul. When he arrived, he heard the bleating of the sheep and the lowing of the oxen. And asked Saul why he had disobeyed God.
I intend to use the best animals as sacrifice to God. Your duty is to obey God's commandments, not to make sacrifices. Fear the Lord and serve him faithfully.
It was evident that because of his disobedience, Saul was not worthy of being king.
God was not pleased with Saul, and he told the prophet Samuel that he was going to choose a new leader. Samuel sent for Jesse and his sons, but received no sign from God. When asked if all the sons were here, Jesse replied, "All are here but the youngest." At Samuel's request, Jesse sent for his son David.
Arise and anoint him, for this is he.
From that day on, God blessed David and made him strong. King Saul knew that he had lost the favor of God. One day, he asked one of his servants to find a man who could entertain him, and the servant told him about David, who was very successful in playing the lyre. "Send David to me." David played the lyre, and Saul's evil thoughts disappeared. David found favor in Saul's eyes and agreed to remain at his service.
Meanwhile, the Israelites were still troubled by the Philistines, whose champion was a giant named Goliath.
Choose a man for yourself and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we shall be your servants.
When David heard about this, he went to talk with King Saul.
Let no man's heart fail because of him. No, I will go and fight this Philistine.
No, you will not fight me because you are young. Not will you destroy me.
I have killed bears and lions, and I shall do the same to him, and give his body to the birds to eat.
So David took a stone and went to Goliath in the name of the Lord.
How dare you mock me with this child?
And David threw the stone, Goliath, and killing him.
As time passed, Saul grew jealous of David's superiority in battle and popularity with the people. Twice, while David was playing the lyre for him, Saul unsuccessfully tried to kill him. All the people of Israel and Judea loved and admired David, until finally Saul realized that God was with David.
You are a good man. I have been evil to you, and you have been good to me.
Then Saul took his men and went home. After Saul's death, all the tribes came to David and said,
Behold, you are our flesh and blood. God has chosen you to be king.
And the people anointed David to be their king. So it was
that from the city of Jerusalem, David ruled over Israel and Judea for 33 years. When David became too old to rule, he chose his son Solomon to take his place. Solomon ruled over Israel and Judea and married the daughter of the Egyptian Pharaoh. Solomon prayed to God for the strength and wisdom to lead his people and to know the difference between good and evil.
I will make you wiser than any other man. I shall give you what you have not asked for, riches and honor, so that no other king shall compare with you.
He also gave Solomon wisdom and understanding beyond measure.
One day, two women came to see King Solomon.
We live in the same home, and I had a child. 3 days later, this woman had a child. One night while I was sleeping, her child died. She laid it by my side and took the living child. No, the living child is mine and the dead child is yours. No, this is not true. Guard the sword. Divide the child in two and give one half to each mother. Yes, divide him so he shall not be neither mine or hers. No! Give the child to her, but do not kill it.
Solomon saw that this woman would rather give him up than see him harmed.
Guard, give the child to her, for she is the real mother.
All of Israel admired. As God promised, Solomon became the wealthiest king in the land and was admired by other kings. Amongst his 4 friends were Queen Sheba and King Hiram of Tyre. He wanted to fulfill one of his father's wishes, to build a temple to God. The temple was built with the finest cedar wood from the forest of Lebanon. The walls were carved with the figures of angels. The sanctuary and altar were covered with pure gold.
When it was finished, Solomon gathered his people for worship and brought the Ark of the Covenant into the Holy Temple.
I have heard your prayers, and I have blessed this house which you have built for me. If you do all I have commanded, then I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever.
But even Solomon was not a perfect king. God had warned Solomon about worshiping idols. As the years passed, Solomon married many women from nations that worshipped idols and was tempted by them. He turned to worship other gods. God became very angry with Solomon and told him that as punishment for his sins, he would deliver Solomon into the hands of his enemies. However, God did not forget all the good things that Solomon had done and promised that one day Solomon's descendants would inherit the land again.
In the land of Benjamin in Israel, a boy named Jeremiah was chosen by God to be his prophet. God told Jeremiah to hide a linen waistcloth between the rocks along a river.
Several days later, God told Jeremiah to go back and take the waistcloth from its hiding place. The waistcloth was ruined and worthless, and God said,
These evil people who refuse to hear my words shall be like this waistcloth, which is good for nothing.
Jeremiah spent his life being a witness to the Lord. He foretold disaster for his people, was beaten, put in stocks, and imprisoned. According to legend, Jeremiah was stoned to death by his own people.
Lead us back to you, O Lord!
After Solomon died, his kingdom was divided. Most of the rulers were not wise and great leaders. Elijah was a just man and one of the prophets. He lived during Ahab's rule as king of Israel.
Ahab and his wife Jezebel worshipped the false god Baal. Elijah, following God's command, asked that all of Baal's followers offer sacrifices, while he alone would offer sacrifices to the one true God. For a full day, the followers of Baal prayed. Nothing happened. Elijah then prepared and said,
God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, hear me, God.
God sent fire from heaven, and all proclaimed,
The Lord